The Indianapolis Colts may have lost this weekend in LA, but there's still a lot to be encouraged about with this team going forward. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and my partner in crime, Jake Arthur, is the credentialed Crocs on the ground for Roundtable Sports. Sorry, guys, it's Monday. I barely have a voice right now. We're going to get to you guys our typical Monday show breakdown, talk about Daniel Jones and the biggest storylines, talk about the offense, talk about the defense, and go through this Rams game one final time before we move on to the Las Vegas Raiders and the rest of this week here. Starting off with Daniel Jones, Jake, I know he's not the biggest storyline after this game because there's so many other things to talk about, but Daniel Jones finally had his comeback to earth type of game for the Colts, and it wasn't a bad game by any means for him. He went 24 of 33, completed 72% of his passes for 262 yards at 7.9 yards per attempt, which is still pretty solid. A touchdown, 2 picks, took 2 sacks in this game. So it definitely was a big step down from what he had done in previous weeks, but I still don't think it was like an atrocious game that we saw from him. It might have even been a little bit better than some of the stats would say here. But what were your thoughts on Jones watching live on Sunday and then maybe on rewatch as well?
Yeah, if you can, I think you can really live with your worst game of the season so far being over 70% completions and your YPA being 7.9. That's his worst YPA of the year so far. The first time he hasn't been over 9. And also the first time he hasn't had a 100 quarterback rating. But yeah, I mean, we anticipated there would be lower games on the schedule, but I didn't even really feel like this was a bad game from Daniel. I thought overall it was pretty decent, but there were some rough moments in there. The 2 interceptions, I really wasn't a fan of either of them. Not all interceptions are necessarily made equal. Some are a little more excusable than others. I didn't think it was really necessary. Like the first one, throwing to A.D. Mitchell on the first drive, just should have been a better throw. Like I don't think the decision was necessarily bad, but the one in the final moments there, I think he probably was pressing too hard and was going for something that just wasn't there. But if you take those away, I still felt pretty good about his day, and he was under duress a lot of the time. Like, even though the Denver game, they had like kind of a ferocious pass rush, this game, we knew this was like a team-oriented, team-based group pass rush, and it seemed that way. I hardly felt like there was ever just one guy coming free. It felt like there was 2 or 3 coming from different directions. Like that defense knows how to get after it, and Jones, I mean, he's able to escape pressure, but more times than ever, he just had to let the ball rip while he was getting crushed or falling down to the turf. You know what I mean? So all things considered, I think it was a decent performance. The Colts could have won with, like they still should have won the game. His interceptions, I do feel, were detrimental. Like they weren't necessary, but they could have won with his performance for sure.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Daniel Jones is, he's a limited quarterback. He's not a super talented, like Josh Allen level talent back there. So there are limitations in what he brings. And the biggest limitation throughout this first month has been that deep ball. Now, he completed a handful of these deep opportunities in the first 3 games because Alec Pierce is one of the best 50-50 ball guys. And then there have been just a lot of wide open shots down the field. But when you take Alec Pierce out of the equation, when the shots down the field aren't as open, you can really see the limitations on the arm talent. And that's where I think he really falls short of like being the perfect quarterback in a lot of ways. But overall, if I had to grade this game for Daniel Jones, you give him like a C+, a B- probably. Like it wasn't the end of the world bad game. It wasn't a perfect game either. But for the most part, I think, he's a guy who operates as well as the scheme is going to give him. So when you have a game where guys aren't as open because the Rams are sitting back in zone coverage and their front 4 is just getting after it in the pass rush, and you're leaning on screens a little bit too much, Jones is not going to have these gaudy numbers because the scheme is just getting overmatched by what's happening on defense. But I still think he did some pretty good things out there. The one play that really stands out in terms of like high end play from him was, I think it was the first play of the Colts' second drive when they went down and got a field goal, where he delivered that over the middle throw to Tyler Warren when he had a defender right in his face. I still think he responded well to a lot of pressure in this game, which gives me hope because he didn't just revert to New York Giants Daniel Jones in this game. Like, he was under duress for most of this game, and I still thought he did a decent job moving the ball forward despite Shane Steichen getting outcoached by Chris Shula in terms of just overall like scheme and effectiveness in this one. And his offensive line was getting their butts kicked for most of the day. I thought that he had a pretty relatively good day, all things considered. And when the Colts really needed him to go down there and take that lead in the fourth quarter to go up 17-13, he delivered some pretty high-level throws over the middle of the field to get them in that situation, and then threw the touchdown pass to Michael Pittman Jr. So, overall, yes, it could have been a better day from him, but there was nothing I saw in this game that said like, oh no, New York Giants Daniel Jones is back. It still looked very much like Colts Daniel Jones. It's just things were not perfect around him today. Having no Alec Pierce, having no Matt Gonsalves really reared its ugly head. And this was really the first game all year where Shane Steichen was outcoached by the opposing coach on the other side and Chris Shula. So yeah, I think it'll look better when they're in a home environment, when they're not playing a very good defense, these next couple weeks. I know the Cardinals defense is pretty good, but like the Vegas defense isn't nearly as good as this Rams defense. So I think the processes and everything will look so much better for the offense and Daniel Jones going forward. I'm not too concerned. I think that all this did is like it highlighted the biggest deficiencies that he had, but it didn't highlight it in a way where it's like, oh, this is a terrible quarterback. It highlighted it where it's like, yeah, these are things that the Colts have to work around, but he's still playing at a pretty high level. I mean, if you look at what he did in the first month here, he's been one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the league in this first month of play. I'm not complaining about one slightly down game where he still did some pretty good things out there for the Colts.
Yeah, really from the jump, I think it was a third or fourth down conversion to Pittman on their first drive. Like, I thought that was very smooth, very seamless. It didn't feel like there was anything even on the line. Like, it felt like it was just within the flow of the drive. But we've also discussed that, Jones isn't a guy who is the system. He's part of the system. He's going to be Shane Steichen's system quarterback this year. And so that puts a pretty big emphasis on coaching. And I mean, Jones largely did what was asked of him. But, there was a couple times like throwing those screens right into defenders who immediately sniffed it out. You mentioned Shula, probably outcoached Shane a little bit. But yeah, there was how many broken or blown up plays, almost like wasted plays were there, like at least 3 or 4 that were just kind of dead on arrival and didn't really gain an inch because of the defense just knew exactly what was coming. So yeah, if you're asking Jones to be a guy that's going to rise above the system and make all of his own decisions and calls and everything, that's not what we're really looking at. So coaching will be important. And then so Shane has got to help put Jones in the best positions there because, like you said, I mean, Jones is somewhat limited. Like, he has been operating the system at an elite level so far, but the system itself has also been being called at an elite level up to Sunday. So yeah, I mean, there was definitely plenty of good to take away from that. I feel like if this is the worst he looks all year, you're good. Like, that's great. You can absolutely live with that. But yeah, you saw, the interceptions thrown to a guy that normally is going to combat that a little more. He's used to throwing to Alec Pierce on those throws rather than AD Mitchell. So a little adjustment there. Mitchell is not necessarily a guy that's going to win a ton of 50-50 balls like Alec Pierce does, or Pierce is at least going to make it more difficult for the defender. So yeah, just an adjustment all around. I do think you're right with the Raiders coming up. This is a pretty good, I don't want to call it a get right game because that's almost insulting, almost like the Titans game was a get right game, the recipe, but no, I think that this is a good one for them to just get back to what they know they can do. Because I did, as I was watching the game, I sensed what you were saying, I think on our Friday pregame show, with the approach being to kind of pepper them early with passes to set up the run and break Jonathan Taylor free in the second half. And you could sense that coming a little bit because they were selling out to kind of stop Taylor a little bit when he was running. But yeah, you want to know, you want to see if they're going to make any adjustments to what the actual plan is going to be this week against the Raiders. But yeah, the offense was not necessarily what I was super worried about going into that matchup. It's not my lasting takeaway by any means.
Yeah, and I think overall, just to be real quick with this because we got to get to our next segment, but like when you look at how Jones operated in this game, it was fine. Like it was perfectly fine. I think there were some things he could have done better, but I didn't see him melt under pressure. And overall, this Colts offense has shown that they can beat teams that blitz a lot. They've shown that they can beat teams that run a lot of man coverage. This was a big test in a road environment where they had a lot of procedural penalties that knocked them behind the sticks. And they struggled against a team that could dominate with their front four and then sit back in an attacking zone coverage. So they'll have to just adjust to that type of play going forward and really adjust to like how they can be effective on offense on the road going forward, because this was really their first real road test, because that Tennessee game was like, it's not, they're a bad team. It's hard to really get that crowd going. This was against a good team on the road. So I think they'll be fine. They just need to figure out what works for them on the road. Get that silent count reworked, because Tanner Bortolini got killed on a rush up the middle where the silent count was just and he had no chance there. And you could have the greatest center of all time is getting run over in that situation because they timed the snap up. It doesn't matter who that was. So they just need to find some better answers. But it was a tough environment. Getting back home against Vegas, I think, will be a lot better for them. But coming up, guys, we have a lot to talk about with the rest of the offense, from a certain skill position player to the offensive line. It was kind of a letdown game for that offense against the Los Angeles Rams. But first, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is just as fun and simple way to add more excitement to football. You pick more or less on individual player projections, such as Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick and easy PrizePicks is. Just make your lineup in under 1 minute. Bing, bang, boom. It's also fun to follow other players in the app. I can roast Jake for his decisions, or I can even copy his lineups with just one click, and I'm feeling insecure about my own lineups. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
All right, guys, tell me, what do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Number one, probably having a fever dream, but otherwise it's confidence, pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can achieve what you need and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. And if you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Don't forget. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off of your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so that they know that we sent you. All right, guys, let's talk offense on this fine day. On the heels of the Colts' first loss of the season, they are now 3-1. They lost 27-20 out at SoFi Stadium to the Los Angeles Rams. So we talked Daniel Jones, the field general of the offense, but what about everything around him? So if you caught the squad show last night, I feel like we designated about half the show to A.D. Mitchell. But if you didn't, we're not just going to gloss over it. We'll get to it, here just shortly. Because again, I mean, it was important. It's what most people are talking about today. So A.D. Mitchell, he gets the would-be 75-yard touchdown. And, as he goes to extend the ball, whether whether he's extending, whether he's celebrating, whatever he's doing, he loses the grasp of the football, flies out of the back of the end zone. Instead of being a touchdown for the Colts, building up that lead, it's now Rams football. Luckily, it was just a punt fest after that, so it wasn't like an immediate consequence necessarily, but it still took 7 points off the board nonetheless. And then later, Jonathan Taylor in the fourth quarter had a would-be 53-yard touchdown, and then AD got called on a pretty bad holding call. So he was kind of the GOAT of the day, the bad GOAT. I know that's an obviously positive phrase nowadays, but yeah, AD, not the best performance. And I mean, you honestly kind of feel for a guy who, Zach, I felt like in that moment when he loses the ball, he just sees nothing but vindication in his eyes. Like, look, something's finally breaking my way. My first career touchdown, whoop, and then there it goes, So you can see the explosion of frustration from him on the sideline. I talked to Shane Steichen just a little bit ago before coming on here, and he said that AD Mitchell, addressed the team first thing in the team meeting today. Shane talked to him one-on-one in his office today, and they just said, obviously that cannot happen, and you got to be better and you got to earn it moving forward. So we'll see how much playing time he gets in the immediate aftermath. It might be skewed anyways, depending on if Alec Pierce is back. But yeah, the 80 thing happened. It's probably time to just turn the page on that one, Zach.
Yeah, it's just tough because unlike with Jonathan Taylor's situation last year, Jonathan Taylor is a former first-team All-Pro, multiple-time Pro Bowler who has been just a dominant force for your offense for a long time. AD Mitchell, this is kind of a microcosm of what his career has been. For every, like you said last night on the squad show, Jake, it's always one step forward, two steps back with AD Mitchell. So he makes this fantastic game-changing play, which maybe would have put the Colts in the driver's seat the rest of the way, and they could have just run Jonathan Taylor for a quarter and a half to win the game. And then it's the fumble out the back of the end zone. And then there's redemption time later in the game, has the most clear and obvious hold of all time on Taylor's long run. Just let the guy go, and Taylor falls forward, and it's 2nd and 2, and you have 15 yards to go for a game-winning field goal. Like, it was just dumb mistakes, both of them, just absolutely stupid mistakes that shouldn't happen. And because he's not Jonathan Taylor, because he is a player who's been marred by stuff like this, not exactly this, but just inconsistencies, it gets you more in the doghouse than a player like Taylor. So it's going to be hard for him to get out. I don't really have too much more to say on it than that. Like, I hope he's able to find his way, but I think we're going to see more Doolin than him these next month or so. And it's going to take a long time for him to really earn up that trust again in the offense. But I did want to throw some positive love towards Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, and Michael Pittman Jr. I thought all three of them were very good in this game, especially when the Colts needed some kind of spark on offense. I thought those three were good. But the biggest negative, I think, besides AD Mitchell, Jake, is just this offensive line got bowled over all game long. And the Rams have a great defensive front, like a fantastic defensive front, and they were just teeing off. They certainly found out the Colts silent count snap by halfway through the game. They were jumping almost every single snap, and it put the Colts just behind the 8 ball. Like, they could not overcome just these guys having the snap jumped so constantly. So I think that is a big issue that the coaching staff needs to take fault for on there. But yeah, the O-line, Dalton Tucker just had a really bad game. Borderlini got run over a couple times in pass pro. Braden Smith had his first negative game in pass protection. Nelson was trying to cover up for everyone else and got run over a couple times as a result. Ryman was probably their only decent offensive lineman in this game, and he still didn't have a great game either. So you're not going to win many games in the NFL when you lose in the trenches. I think not having Mac Gonsalves was a huge just detriment to the Colts offensive line. So hopefully he can get back this next week and they can get back to where they were before this, because this was a big step back for the Colts offensive line.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably the toughest test that line is going to face, toughest defensive front they'll face until they face the Eagles in the Super Bowl later in February. Didn't know if you were going to catch that one or not.
No, we're all negative.
You're not going there?
We're negative today, Jake. No, we're negative. We lost, okay? We can't talk about Super Bowls right now. Okay, it's barely playoff Colts again. It's
Monday.
The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
The 24-hour rule, you flush it, go, and it's on to the next.
It hasn't been 24 hours yet.
All right, semantics.
Yeah, get out of
Whatever.
here.
All right.
23 hours, 21 hours, whatever it is. But no,
No.
I think they'll be fine long term. The offensive line,
Mhm.
like you have games where you get your butt kicked sometimes.
Yeah.
The great Eagles offensive line gets their butt kicked every now and then. So like it happens. The Rams have a dominant front four that I think is slept on, probably slept on even by me this past week leading up to the game. And once they got that snap count done, it was over for the Colts. I'm shocked they even got the touchdown drive in the fourth quarter
Yeah.
because once that snap count was figured out, I mean, we saw on Tanner Bortolini getting run over. It could have been Hall of Fame center Jason Kelsey. He would have got run over on that exact same play because
Mhm.
he timed this. He had a 3-yard running start with one of the best bull rushes in football right in your center's face. You have no chance there. So there were just a couple plays like that where the Colts' overall process on offense was just not good, and it left the offensive line to dry a little bit. And they just need to get better going forward and find some way to operate on the road, because if road games look like that, they'll be lucky to have the potential 27 points like they had on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, some of the good news, obviously, Jonathan Taylor looked like he was on his way to another incredible second half. He had been averaging over 8 yards per carry in second halves coming into this. Obviously, I think that 53-yard touchdown probably would have put him over that mark as well, especially if they could have continued running it out after. Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren combined for 10 catches, 111 yards. Tyler Warren gets his first touchdown of his career on a little, 2-yard fullback dive there. They wanted that bad. They ran him twice in a row, once out of the Wildcat before that. Pittman, I'm not even thinking about the back thing anymore from last year. Like, he looks so much just like regular Michael Pittman. He's very reliable. Like, he is that guy among the receiver core that you can really rely on. This is maybe a subject for Wednesday. I am kind of curious, like, when do you get Josh Downs really going though? Like right now, he's just kind of your converter when you need a first down, and it feels like that's just what he's being used for. He's not really getting involved much beyond the sticks at all. Like it's a lot of like 7-8 yard completions for him. And we know he's capable of more. And it just feels like something missing from their offense, that an offense that's been kind of explosive and could be even more so if you kind of pull on that a little bit. But yeah, we'll probably get to that later in the week. But it's definitely something that I saw it and I'm like, there's something kind of missing there.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Josh Downs later in the week, but let's get to this Colts offense here, or this Colts defense here in just a second. How they had Matt Stafford contained for most of the game, but a couple issues and one big target on their defense led to the lack of overall success. But first, caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love the most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get the boost that you need. Honestly, I love how fast it kicks in, and it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about that crashing later. You guys can tell I'm already someone who's always hyped up on caffeine, so something like 5-hour energy just keeps me going throughout the entire day. I'd sound just like Jake without my caffeine on the show here. Hey. I say that with love, Jake. I say that with love. You're my Eeyore on this show. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today.
All right, y'all. The NFL season is obviously in full swing, and FanDuel's got an offer that you don't want to miss. So listen here. Right now, new customers, you guys can bet just $5, and you get $300 in bonus bets if that bet wins. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire app. FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love just diving into the stats and nerding out a bit, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, welcome back. We are putting this Colts loss to bed here soon, but we got to talk about the defensive side of the ball first. So honestly one of the biggest defensive gaffes of the entire day, Zach, was there on the 88-yard game-winning touchdown for Matthew Stafford to Tutu Atwell. Only 10 men on the field. And you didn't even realize that because you assumed the problem was that Mekhi Blackman slips, coming out of the break there for Atwell. And then Atwell's just all alone streaking down the field. That is his game, is, the deep ball, the explosive play. He doesn't get used a lot, but that's what he is pretty much used for. And then so that put the bow on it for the Rams, put them ahead for good. And yeah, so come to find out, Cam Bynum says later after the game, only 10 men on the field on that one. So you're not going to win a lot of times that way. That's another thing Steichen commented on today, this afternoon. He said, that was unacceptable and can't happen. He put it on him, but it's like not really on him. He's just kind of falling on the sword as the head coach, because you're not going to go out there and just count how many people are on the field every time. You're going to assume the right personnel have been put out there. So,
well, they do have people. Sorry, the coaching staffs do have people in the box that are supposed to count pre-snap every play, and then they call down.
It's not on Steichen.
They call down to the head coach when that happens, though. So either they didn't call down to him, or by him taking accountability, they did call down to him, and he was like, "I don't want to waste this timeout because if we get the ball back." So that's just me adding a little context in terms of how organizations typically operate with that, because I'm assuming, again, some people in the box, it's like their entire job to count players on the field. So it might have been a situation where he was like, we have to save this timeout regardless. And then afterwards, in retrospect, you're thinking
bold strategy.
right. It's just something that happens. I don't know exactly what happened, but Steichen did take fault for it. So we can take him for his word here, I guess, when it comes to that. But I think it was a clear indictment of just where this defense has been this first month, where it's like, they're right there. I think there's so many good aspects to what they're doing, but there's just a couple things here or there where they're getting outcoached in some ways, outperformed in some ways, have these minor gaffes that turn into bigger offensive explosions than what they should be. Because I think for 85% of that game, the defense was awesome. The defense was fantastic for a good 85% of that game. You look at it, all the Rams touchdowns came in hurry up offense, those 2 hurry up drives they did. And then on the blown play with 10 men on the field and a corner falling down, for the other parts of the game, they held them to 6 points. A very good offense. And you can't just use that and say like, oh, besides their 3 best drives, they were good all day. But I think for the most part, it was a positive showing for a defense that, like, look, they have no chance of covering both those 2 wide receivers out there with what they have at one of the cornerback spots. But I think they still had a very productive day. It's just, they got outcoached in a couple things. I think this defense is going to look good by December. Once they figure out cornerback 2, and once they really start trusting the system and trusting where they need to be, I think they're going to look really good by November, December. To get through September 3-1 with your defense going through these growing pains, I think is a really positive sign for this Colts team.
Yeah, my thing is I hope they're willing to make the necessary changes because, again, one of the things for Lou Anarumo coming into Indy that people told us was that he's really apprehensive to let go of the veterans and trust some younger guys. We've seen that with Xavien Howard through the first few weeks. Like, Sunday was not the first game that was problematic for him. Now it is just a quarter of the season end. So maybe they have thought to this point it's a bit early to pull the rug on him. 32-year-old guy, let him get his feet under him. He hasn't played, whatever. But like, the evidence is here that it ain't it. Like, just on Sunday. Now, PFF's coverage stats, I think you have to take them with a big grain of salt. But they had him with allowing 7 of 10 targets for over 100 yards, a touchdown, and 6 first downs, which doesn't feel inaccurate. All that inaccurate. There was the big 25-yard Devontae Adams completion that set up the Puka Nacua touchdown. Howard was in coverage on both of those. He just looks lackadaisical. He does not look like the most intense guy on the field when he's out there. And I said on the show last night, opponents see the weak spot in coverage. Like, they see if you get a runner in motion after this, like if you get them with room to run after the snap and you have him playing chase, he's not going to win that.
Yeah.
And they have to be willing to make adjustments because this clearly is not working.
Yeah, and it's the same thing I said last night, Jake. It's not just getting them running before the snap to get them space. It's anything right now with Xavien Howard. There's no positive to what he's bringing. Like I could go another 30 minutes here just ranting about how bad his play has been. He is hindering the entire process of the defense right now. They are trying to play more man coverage on third down, and you really can't when you have Xavien Howard because there's just a big target on the field that says throw here. And I know it was exasperated in this game because he was going to be covering one of Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams, and whoever he was covering is who they were going to throw it to on those third downs. And maybe it looks better next week when he's covering Trey Tucker instead of he's covering, I don't even know who the Raiders
I think Trey Tucker's a burner, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so Trey Tucker's their top guy. Somebody else, whoever.
Jacoby Myers, maybe?
Yeah, Jacoby Myers. I don't know. Whoever he's covering, maybe it looks better than this next week against the Raiders, but it's been an issue through an entire month. And to what you said, Jake, like, oh yeah, get his legs under him and see what it is. But you have a month of data here in a season that's only 4 of these months long, like how much more data do you need? We're like a quarter of the way through the season and it's been a train wreck on that side of the field. And like you said about him being lackadaisical and kind of lazy on the field, and you guys know me, I don't call players lazy. I talked about Taven Bryan being my enemy on the show for 2 years, and I never once called Taven Bryan lazy. I will never call a player lazy until they show they are lazy on film. And that out throw to Devontae Adams was pure laziness from a player. And it's just something you can't see on a field. And for as much as we say that A.D. Mitchell should have been benched after some of his stuff, I thought Howard had more inexcusable reps in this past game than Mitchell had. So yeah, it's just something that I think at the end of the day, Blackman and Edwards might make the same exact mistakes and might get targeted just as much in coverage, but I at least know they're going to be running full speed out there. It's just stuff that you can't have happen. It's kind of embarrassing that he's still getting reps at this point. And they need to make a move. They just need to make a move at this point. Like he just can't keep playing I don't know if it's confidence or ability or what it is, but it's hurting this Colts defense and it's going to keep hurting them and it's going to keep limiting what they can do on third downs and fourth downs when teams have to throw the ball. So that's all I can say on it at this point. I don't want to keep going in on one player, but to speak positively before we get out of here, Jay, because we are going a little bit long right now. DeForest Buckner, Laiatu Latu, Adetomiwa Adebawore, all fantastic on Sunday. I think especially Laiatu Latu is a player who, leading into this game, I did a whole video on my personal YouTube channel being like, where is Latu? Like, why does the stats not seem to be matching up with the eye test? And it was because he was getting a lot of late wins. Well, on Sunday, he was the edge rusher we all wanted. By my count, he had like 8 pressures in this game. He had the sack. He had a couple QB hits. I thought he was just dominant in forcing things in the backfield. DeForest Buckner as well. And then you get a little bit of Adetomiwa in there too to really disrupt the pocket. I thought those 3 found some good things going. And as a result, this was the best the Colts pass rush had looked all season long. So in a game with a lot of negatives on offense and defense, I thought those 3 were phenomenal for the Colts.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say Nick Cross, he was a guy who I felt like as a last line of defense type of guy, I felt grateful for him. He had 14 tackles. There were plenty of times where I was like, okay, someone's got to tackle Nacua. Someone's got to tackle Kyron Williams. At least it's the guy who probably hits the hardest in Nick Cross. So as always, he showed up. Buckner, a couple tackles for loss. I've seen places that have charted Latu with 9-10 pressures. Again, awesome game from him. I think he's really heating up because this was not his first game with several pressures. First game with an official sack, though, in this season. Mike Hilton, I was shocked at how much he played initially. I thought Blackman was going to play most of the game in the slot just because he's been here. Hilton making his season debut in week 4 for a new team, albeit he knows the system, but I just did not think he would play as much as he did. And he made 2 or 3 pretty big plays, including forcing a fumble, which the Colts recovered. So very encouraged by Hilton's play. JT Tuimoloau was finally active again for the second time. Only played 5 snaps. Week 2 played 9 snaps in this one, so he's getting a little more play there. Didn't really notice much from him just because that's such a small sample size. He was credited with 1 tackle, though, so there's that. And then I mentioned a couple times Shane Steichen has spoken today earlier. I asked about Jalen Carlies. No update there. Maybe they'll have an update for us when we talk to Shane again on Wednesday. but they could open the practice window for him this week. We'll see if they wind up doing that. I really hope they do.
Yeah, I was say to end this show real quick. I will say that Jalen Carlisle is probably pumped with how this first month has gone for the Colts at linebacker, because the guy next to Zaire Franklin has been the second weakest part of the Colts defense. Whoever it's been, they have rotated. It's been Austin Ajake, it's been Joe Bacci, it's been Cam McGrone, who I don't even think really played out there at all this weekend.
No.
And then Chad Muma got some run on this weekend. And all four of them have been equally terrible in that role. So Jalen Carlisle, it is your prime time when you get back to win that job and keep it for the rest of your career. But we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen of the day, today and every day. For the NFL season is finally here. So if you're next listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of NFL espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. Follow us on YouTube as well. Subscribe over there. We'd love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.